All right, good afternoon. It is 1:02 and welcome to the February 21st, 2024 Technical Review Committee meeting. My name is Ryan Fisher. I'm a senior planner with Oldham County Planning and Development. The purpose of this meeting is to review proposed subdivisions, zoning map amendments, and development plans before they go to the Planning Commission. This gives local agencies, those represented here in front of you today, utility companies that will provide services, the opportunity to review those plans, discuss and comment about the accessibility of services, and ensure all aspects of the development plans adhere to zoning and subdivision regulations. This meeting also provides adjoining property owners and concerned citizens in attendance the opportunity to ask technical questions in nature of the applicants or agencies that are represented before you today. Both of these docketed items will go through the same format. First, we'll have the applicant come forward and give a brief presentation. We'll then have the agencies represented here in front of you provide their comments. And we will then allow for public comment if you do want to come forward. Just once again, we ask that those questions remain technical in nature of either the applicant or the agencies represented here in front of you. And when you come forward, you'll just state your name and address for the record. With that being said, there are two items on the agenda today. The first one being Sycamore Run Subdivision, Sections 2B and 3. If the applicant would come forward.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Mr. Fisher, Mr. Urban, Mr. Fogel, Ms. Edgar, everybody, good afternoon. My name is Mike Swansburg, law firm Swansburg & Smith. I'm here representing Sycamore Run. My address, again, is 117 West Main Street here in LaGrange. And the purpose for me to stand here is, other than introduce myself, is also to introduce two individuals who will be speaking as to any technical questions or other questions that might be raised here. One, of course, is Clay Jones, who is the owner and developer of the property at Sycamore Run. And also we have Ted Bernstein, who is the engineer on this case, and would be happy to answer any questions. With that, I'm going to actually take a seat and let them stand up and actually give a discussion about the proposal, and then again be open to answer any questions that you all might have. Thank you.
Afternoon. Clay Jones, 7506 Jones Trace in Crestwood. I'll give you a 10-cent presentation here. That's a mix of the neighborhood meeting presentation as to our basic proposal. Jay got me set up there. Thank you, Jay. So currently approved sections of Sycamore Run, not constructed but approved, are sections 2B and 3 that are shown on the screen. 2B in yellow that will be built this year, and 3, which would be a future section at some point 2-3 years down the road. At present, this road right here is the connection point between 2B and 3. Crosses a deep valley with an intermittent blue line stream right in the middle of it. The 28 acres that we recently purchased is this property outlined in green, and our proposal moves the road, which again is right here, and you can actually, that red line is the intermittent blue line stream, and this shows the topo lines, and you can see how close they get together and how steep and deep that valley is. But that currently approved road would connect right here. Our proposal is to move that road up onto the ridge and go through the 28 acres to connect sections 2B and 3. It allows us to go around the valleys and keep pretty much all of our roads up on the ridges where it's easier to build and there's less impact to the environment and to the streams, of course. We have, going through that property, we have 13 lots up on the ridge line on either side of that connecting road between the two sections. And then we have 4 lots, deeper lots than those back in the neighborhood. They average 1 3/4 to 2.4 acres. And we intentionally made them deeper since they will front Highway 42. We actually, I'll show you another design real quick that one of the initial designs that Ted came up with actually gave us 3 additional lots. But it had a cul-de-sac that dropped down towards 42, and these 4 lots down near 42, the backs of the houses would face Highway 42. We didn't feel like that was representative of the current character up and down 42. And even though it gave us 3 additional lots and a little better for our bottom line, we opted to stay with the 4 deeper lots with houses facing 42, which is more representative of the character. And that's it in a nutshell. That's the basic proposal. And I don't know the typical TRC deal, whether there's questions now or.
Yeah, well, are you done with your presentation? You don't have anything
Yes.
to add?
Yes, unless Ted had anything to add.
Okay. So we'll do the agency comments, and then if we have any questions at that point. So Brian Fogel, Assistant Director with Planning and Development, is the case manager on this, so I'll let him begin.
Yep. Thank you, Ryan. In reviewing the submitted plat for today's TRC meeting, I just have a half dozen comments of things that should be revised on the preliminary plan. Probably of most significance is we did receive an email from the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet indicating that the 4 lots along Highway 42 will be limited to 2 driveway entrances. So that would basically be shared access for lots 1A, 2A, and then shared access for lots 3A and 4A. And then they did put the caveat in there that the locations of those specific entrances will have to satisfy their site distance requirements. So we're just going to request, and we'll give you copies of everything here that's in writing. We're going to request that you put on a plat the fact that those 2 lots will each share a common driveway entrance onto Highway 42. And in terms of those 4 lots along 42, we're going to ask that you renumber those. Right now, they're 01A, 02A, 03A, 04A, just to get them into a sequential order with the other lots in the subdivision. A lot of that has to do with our permitting software that in the years down the road when we go to issue permits and stuff, there's not any confusion in terms of how to assign those lots. There is a graphic indication of a front building setback line throughout the subdivision, but it doesn't state what that setback is. I could certainly take a scale and scale it off, but just in terms of anticipating what the Planning Commission may see at their meeting, we'd just like to get a written note that shows what that setback line is. And there are missing both graphic and written front building setback lines for lots 1A, 2A, 3A, and 4A along 42. And then the street side yard setback for lot 179, which is the corner lot at the entrance to the subdivision in Highway 42. So if we can just get those added to the plat, we'd appreciate that. In the written subdivision data, it incorrectly states that there's 1 open space lot and there's 2 open space lots. So if we can just get a minor modification made to reflect the fact that there are 2 open space lots. And unless I missed it, because it is a busy plat, and if I missed it, you guys just point it out. I don't see where there's an access easement to open space lot 1001. It looks like it's landlocked in by the backyards of the lots that are on the cul-de-sac or the adjacent streets. And if there's not an access easement both to that lot and the proposed detention basin on that lot, we just need you guys to add that to the plat.
Okay.
Again, all kind of minor modifications that are fixed pretty easily, but just putting some pen to the paper.
Great.
All right. And I will give you written copies of this to you and Michael and Ted.
Jim Silliman, County Engineer. So as you're aware, we just recently, this morning, approved the construction plans for 2B, having received the Army Corps of Engineers permitting the jurisdictional determination for the waters of the U.S., your KYR 10, water quality certification. So as you're aware, we received all that and we're able to approve those plans. So that was for 2B. I assume there's going to be some revisions or updates to those permits to include any impacts to the streams in 3. Would that be correct?
In 3,
Yes.
when 3 is presented?
Right.
Correct.
Right. So again, you've done a lot of that legwork or your engineer's done that legwork for the 2B, and it'll need to be updated for 3. Similarly, Brian, you mentioned the 4 lots on Kentucky Highway 42. KYTC might require an update to their permit for the additional lots that are, trips generated. I don't see it being a problem, but it'd be worth it to get an update from them that the additional lots using the main road
Okay.
are acceptable for their permit. Again, you'll need to get a KYR 10 for Section 3. The one we received was for 2B, and of course also our local Oldham County stormwater permit, since the area of disturbance is over an acre. Let's see. Oh, on the plan, similar to some of those minor revisions that Brian was talking about, the roadside ditches are shown outside the right-of-way. Those need to be within the right-of-way. And then there are just some other minor corrections on the plans that Brian will give you a copy of our markup for you, along with our review letter. So that's all.
Thank you.
Matt Toller, the GIS and addressing, in addition to just getting with me with proposed street names and the addresses, what is, since this area between lot 180 and 181 is not part of the subdivision, do we know, is that just a vacant lot? Is it? I just want to know.
180, is that?
It just
Del
says
Finley?
9D, but there's no ownership to it for like a PVA. I just wanted to make sure that,
Yeah, that is. Homeowner by the name of Estelle Finley owns that property, and there is a house there that the driveway currently comes down to 42. Once we develop the road, we're building a driveway to that house that comes out onto Sycamore Ridge Lane. Will be, Sycamore Ridge Lane.
so they're going to be aware that their number will be changed, their address will be changed?
Yes. Yes.
All right. I just want to take that into consideration when I, do the spacing for all the numbers, that we just know that.
Sure. Yeah,
Since it
they
isn't
will
part
have
of the
an
subdivision.
address on Sycamore Ridge Lane.
All right.
Correct, and they are aware of that.
Yeah, that's the only comment I have.
Okay.
Charlie Ward, the Environmental Health Director at the Oldham County Health Department. On February 7th, we went out and did our preliminary site evaluations and concerns with on-site sewage disposal for the subdivision. Periodically checked, basically a random sampling all over the entire property. General consensus being that the lots will be provisionally suitable for a conventional septic system. Once this all goes through and the lots have been actually marked and identified with property lines, we will go back and do an individual site evaluation on every property to know a specific and exact location for that septic system for a house to be proposed and built. So at some point, I will go back and do, how many lots are we talking about?
17.
17 more site evaluations for specific properties to know exactly what we're dealing with. So Clay, I've given you a letter, I'm giving them a letter, just going over findings and soil notes and marktations of every system we did.
Perfect, thank you.
Clay, when I searched, I didn't find 2B in my data, so I went ahead and included all of it together. So you would get, right now, that the 93 that's on that whole, the plat that
2B
I
and
have,
3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Would be 20, it would generate us right now 15 kids a year, which would be 22 building permits per year.
Okay.
So I can go back and look again, but like I said, I didn't see it in my data, and I can check with Planning Commission and see if they have it back when it was originally, 2B was originally approved.
Okay.
So, but I will look, and before I get this to the board, it will get a updated number.
There were actually 2 separate approvals. There was originally approved in, I don't remember, 2004 or 5 maybe.
Okay.
And then it was modified in 2021. 2B and 3 were modified in 2021.
Okay. I'll go back and look again. So,
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Is there anybody in the audience that has questions that are technical in nature of the applicant or agencies represented? All right. Well, with that being said, that concludes the first docketed item. If you were notified of that case as an adjoining property owner, you will be notified of any subsequent hearings that they may have regarding that case. With that being said, we'll move to the second docketed item. That is Glenn CDJR of Louisville, a zoning map amendment and development plan. Looking at going on a zoning change from C1 to a C3. So with that, the applicant can come forward as we get the podium cleared.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. I'm Cliff Ashburn with Dinsmore and Scholl here today on behalf of the applicant. Just to give you a little bit of an overview, all have obviously reviewed the plan. I don't have a presentation for you today. Oops, sorry. I don't have a specific presentation for you today. Mike Hill with Land Design and Development is also part of the development team, and he will be answering any technical questions you have or talking with you about comments. One thing that I do want to point out, the proposed use looks is a little bit different than what you might expect looking just at the plan. So the proposed use is to allow Glenn to continue to operate, but grow within Crestwood. And so Glenn is landlocked, and they do a robust enough business that they require additional space for storage of vehicles, conditioning of vehicles as they come in to make them ready for sale. The proposed development is not to create a new sales lot, but it is to create a lot where cars are brought, stored, and then shifted over to the main location as people come in to purchase. So keep that in mind. I know that's not necessarily going to influence your technical comments, but I did want you all to have that context as we move forward. So with that, Mike, do you have anything you'd like to add? Yeah, so we're ready to hear the comments.
All right. So I'm the case manager on this one, so and I do have copies of the letter for you. And basically a majority of them kind of revolve just around the landscape aspect of the plans. So the first one is a separate detailed landscape and lighting plan will obviously be required at the time of construction plan review and approval. And in regards to that landscape plan, in our regulations, in those VUAs that are greater than 12,000 square feet or more than 20 parking spaces, a minimum of one island, and ILA is required every 10 spaces. So that's something you all need to look at, and I don't know if you all determine that a waiver will be asked for it in regards to that. In addition, the perimeter landscape buffer area, you all do show on that residential side that borders your lot. In our regulations, that requires a 6-foot high continuous screen. It looks like you all have got a 4-foot chain link fence going between that and the residential property. So that is something else you all will need to take a look at. Other thing I found was just the height of the proposed building, if you could note that on the plans. I know at the top you all have got on there the maximum height for the zoning area, but I didn't see anywhere where it showed the actual height of the building. And then just the other two are just really minor details, and that's note any areas of substantial existing trees, their general description, type and size, if there's any of those that you're going to keep on the lot or anything like that. And then note any areas of steep slope, anything over 30%, and if there's none, note that on the plan as well. With that, that concludes my comments. Go down to Jim.
Okay, so as usual, since this disturbs greater than 1 acre of land, there will be the KYR 10 required from the Kentucky Division of Water and a local Oldham County Stormwater Management and Erosion Control Plan permit. You're encroaching onto Kentucky Highway 146, a state route, so that'll also require an encroachment permit from the state. Cliff, your comment about use does affect my technical comments because we're looking at the Institute of Transportation Engineers data on trip generation for traffic impacts, and we looked at this a couple ways. One with automotive used automotive sales, but, as you stated, it's really not typical used automotive or not at all. So then if it's, we look at the data for Auto Care Center, either way, the trips generated are somewhere between 35 and 45 peak hour trips. So it falls above the 20 trip mark for a traffic assessment, but below the 100 trip mark. So it does require the traffic assessment in accordance with Oldham County subdivision regulations. On the future plans, please show a cross-section of the pavement that would also detail whether there's curbs. I think the way the storm sewer is laid out, and we may have talked about this, that the perimeter is encompassed by curbs. That should be included in accordance with our subdivision regulations, and also to convey the stormwater to that internal system better. Let's see. Oh, the detention basin, before we would release the erosion control surety for construction, an easement around that basin should be recorded with the Oldham County Clerk. General notes that we always have for review, typical like the outlet for the basin should be 15 feet or greater from the property line, no trees within the 100-year water surface elevation. And as discussed in our pre-application meeting, we're concerned with the proximity to the downstream lake from the proposed detention basin. I see that you've added the temporary additional EPSC forebay to assist in that sediment capture. We'd also expect a robust EPSC plan to ensure that no sediment or other pollutants make it to that lake during construction. So, thank you.
I don't have any comments.
All right.
I've just got one. During our pre-application meeting, I suggested that you consider looking at some kind of on-site stormwater management that's a little different. I gave examples of what's going on in Walmart parking lot where we have tree wells to capture. This is at the top of a watershed that ultimately ends up at Spring Hill Trace, and we have floodplain issues down there, and keeping as much water out of the stormwater system as possible is good. I know there's detention, but just some other opportunity to maybe hold back some water a longer period of time, that would be appreciated.
All right. And I do have a real quick question, and I do apologize since I wasn't at the pre-application meeting. So it does show 363 spaces on here, and maybe this is just a question for the adjoining property owners to hear, but based on Glenn's inventory, I mean, is that expected to be full? Is that their goal to have 363 cars parked there, or based on their inventory, is there anything you've had conversations with them?
So it would obviously not be full immediately. I think they wanted to have the room as they've ramped up capacity. Everything that we have heard from conversations with our client is that they're one of the more successful dealerships, and as more and more portions of the car buying experience move online, they're able to sell into markets that aren't necessarily local. And so the opportunity to have inventory when it comes in, they obviously, like every car dealer, has been through the past 3 or 4 years where there have been spikes in inventory and very deep valleys in inventory. So they want to be able to be prepared for conditions like that.
Okay. And then do you know how many vehicles can be stored inside? And will vehicles be stored in there overnight with the reconditioning, or do you know that answer?
I don't believe cars are intended to be stored inside. I think they're going to be pulled inside to get the stickers off, do all the things that come after a car has been delivered, or in the case of a used car, maybe cleaning it up, making it ready for sale.
Okay.
And just because there are people in the audience that appear to be here for this case, this says proposed auto reconditioning preparation. There is not an intention to have auto sales out of this
Correct.
property. In other words, customers won't come here to look
Right.
at cars, kick the tires.
Customers are going to come to the dealership to pick up the cars, do the paperwork, all that's going to occur at the dealership.
At the dealership in Crestwood?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, we'll open it up to public comment. If anybody would like to come forward and once again, ask a question that's technical in nature of either the applicant or the agencies, just simply raise your hand and we'll call you forward. Just, we ask that you state your name and address for the record. Anybody? All right.
This is my first time, so I'm Pam Wilder, and I own the property at 6243 West Highway 146. My big concern is the buffer that goes between their property and the houses that are on Camden Acres and obviously where I am. And that's really the only question that I had.
Okay.
Want to have one of the applicants
Yeah,
represent?
do you all?
Was that all I need to do?
Mike Hill, Land Design and Development. So yes, the buffer along the properties, the residential properties, what's required and what's being proposed is a 25-foot buffer space with the required plantings installed in it. Ryan, I think you mentioned earlier a 4-foot chain link fence. That was just a survey note of an existing fence, but there will be screening, the screening requirement being proposed on landscape plan. So we will be providing a mixture of deciduous and evergreen trees within the buffer between our site and your, I'm assuming you're one of the houses that backs up to the site, right?
Kind of on the corner.
Or you're on the corner? Okay.
But I was just curious.
Yeah, right now conceptually, it's a mixture of some evergreens and some deciduous trees, along with possibly a fence. I don't know if did they speak, Cliff? Do you recall of a fence at the neighborhood meeting?
I don't recall any specific request for a fence or any.
Sorry to point you out there.
No, that's okay.
Just stay up here.
Could you repeat the question?
Was there, do you recall discussion at the neighborhood meeting or elsewhere about a fence along the adjacent residential properties?
We didn't, I don't recall a specific statement, we will have this kind of fence in that location. I know that there was discussion about existing fencing that's out in the area right now. But I think the comments about the landscape buffer
If you
were.
speak louder, because I'm
Sorry,
not sure she...
the comments about the landscape buffer were more, I'll say, intentional in nature, saying, you know, yes, we understand you all want a buffer. We're happy to work with you on exactly what that looks like. But I don't recall any specific commitment on a particular kind of fence.
Okay. And with that, just a question. I'll speak out of order here since we've already had our agency comments, but it kind of goes along line. Will there be any other fencing as far as that will provide security for the cars that are there? I mean, I know with people stealing catalytic converters and all sorts of stuff, if there's anything in regards to that.
We think that there will be fencing, there will be some security fencing to prevent people from getting into the bulk of the site. Now, the fence is obviously not going to be on 146, but we don't know exactly where that line is going to be drawn as I stand here.
Okay. All right. Right. You good? All right. And I'll just let the property owner, though, that asked that question know that, so they will be required to do what's called a landscape and lighting plan prior to their construction plans being approved. So within regards to that, we will make sure that that landscape buffer is required, and there's all sorts of requirements that go along with what they need to plant there. We will then, once they get everything in, actually go out and do a site visit to make sure those things are in place. In regards also with the lighting, we're going to make sure that there's not light pollution. Unfortunately, a lot of those things are, once it opens, we usually get those calls coming in from that the light's shining. And so sometimes those are a little bit of process that goes on once the facility opens, but just know that that's kind of that process that takes place. So, is there anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
name's Elaine Adams at 5915 Camden Acres Drive, Crestwood, Kentucky. I have lived on Camden Acres Drive for 50 years. And at the end of our street, it's a 45-mile-an-hour speed zone. I know that the gentleman over there said something about transportation having to come out and everything. This facility, I don't have any objections to it being built. My concern is that when it is built, it's going to be creating additional traffic. The speed limit where this facility is going to be located is 45. In the past, we have approached the highway department and people up here about reducing the speed limit. It's going to create a problem for us as residents on Camden Acres Drive to get out on a normal basis anyway. But this section, adding the additional traffic that it's going to create, which is not, I don't have a problem with it being there. I just want to make sure that the safety of everybody in that area, as far as getting out onto 146, is addressed in that fact that there is going to be additional cars over there. Additional traffic is on 146 anyway. That is going to be also addressed, that maybe there needs to be something changed as far as the speed limit in that area. And I don't know if that's considered a technical question, but it's a concern that I have for us and for them both, is that it's way too have a speed limit. So that's all I have to say. I know they can't address it. It's something that you all have to address. So
I'm going to look to Jim Silliman and see if he has any comments in regards to that.
Right, so that is a state route, so we wouldn't, the county wouldn't change that, but if they look into it as part of their encroachment permit, I think that would be the time that it was done, but I mean, if you'd like, we can convey this concern of yours to Jason Richardson at the Transportation Cabinet, so he's aware that's a specific concern.
well, there is a curve right before you get to the, well, or at that property. There's a curve. And cars, I mean, it says 45, but they're going sometimes 55. This has been a concern of us. There is, right now, a lot of the people have moved away, but in 50 years, we had one instance of about 10 years where every resident on that street got hit by a car because we were trying to turn left. They were coming too fast, including one of my children, and got hit broadside. So it's been an issue going on for a long time. I just feel like that you all need to be aware that even their vehicles, when they go to exit to take them over to the dealership, they could have the same problem. And I had requested this Department of Highway to come out and do a study many years ago. They did the study, but nothing happened. That from the shopping center that is existing in Crestwood all the way through Crestwood should be at 35. It should change way past, before they even get to our area. So it's just a concern I have for their vehicles coming out of the property, for us as residents, because there is a slight curve, and you can start out onto 146 and have a car come flying, and you have to back up into our street until it clears again. So it's just something that you all need to be aware of. And like I said, I know it's probably not a technical question, but it is a concern dealing with their vehicles coming out and ours. So thank you for your time.
Right.
Well, I think it is a technical question, and we can pass that on.
Yeah, and what they usually do is they do a speed study. I know in Buckner, there's a 45 mile an hour speed between Cedar Point Road and the Thorntons, and we asked them to do a speed study, and after doing it, they said, oh, it's appropriately marked. But there is a technical way of determining whether or not it's an appropriate speed, and that's what the cabinet would have to go through in order to consider.
Well, I just didn't know if Oldham County, as a, your all's government, our government here in the Oldham County, if they would have any influence on maybe addressing the same problem.
Yeah, we could ask them to do that speed study.
Well, they've done them twice.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and they keep assuring us that 45 is fine, but it really isn't, because they don't have to live there. These vehicles that are coming out, they're not going to be the ones that, I mean, they're going to take a chance when they go to pull out at a 45. So it's just something that you all need to be aware of, they need to be aware of, and it needs to be addressed.
I didn't realize there were two already done, but that, when we asked them to do it, they do it on a very scientific study, and it's either yes
Well,
or no. We get
asked-
frustrated the same
We asked
way.
for the study when the shopping center was built, and they said it was fine, it was not a problem. After my daughter got hit, trying to turn into our street, I addressed it again, and it's still nothing. I mean, they did the study, they put the little strips across the road, and they had the little machine that did all the ticker or whatever. Nothing happened again. So it's just something that, as a resident, and their business too, it's going to be a problem, with it being that high of a speed limit, and it needs to be addressed and identified.
And
Thank you for your
And
time.
I definitely appreciate your comments. I guess the one other thing at the county level we can do, and I'm sure Chief Smith with Oldham County Police is probably already aware of the speeding issues on that road, but to just, look at maybe some enforcement on that section of the road. So another thing we could do at our level is just let him know that your concerns in regards to speed in that area.
Yeah, well, it's just something that they're going to have to address too, because when they go to pull out, and they're going to have trucks sometimes bringing vehicles in, I assume. And those trucks are going to have to get out of there, and they're going to have to deal with the same problem trying to pull them out, is that it needs to be reduced. That's the bottom line. And I would appreciate any help you all could give to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Going once, going twice? All right, so with that, that will conclude that agenda's item. Similar to what I said in the first hearing, if you were notified of this hearing as an adjoining property owner, if they go forward with any other subsequent hearings, you will be notified as well of those. With that, it's 1:38, and we'll conclude the meeting. Thank you.